Good morning, everyone. Well, it's morning where I am. Anyway, I gave this presentation about a week ago at the Jesse A. Marcel Library, which is located near Helena, Montana. And people asked if I would be able to put it in this format, kind of video format, so that other people would be able to see it. So that's what I'm going to try to do here. For those of us that meet at the Jesse A. Marcel Library, this is the credo that we follow there. We all believe that UFOs are real and that truth is a human right, that love is love, and that kindness is everything. I'm also serving as New Paradigm Institute's coordinator in the state of Montana. And if you haven't heard of New Paradigm Institute, please go to their website, newparadigminstitute.org, and learn about what it is we're trying to accomplish. Please consider joining in our effort to finally achieve full and transparent UFO disclosure through a cooperative effort working with our representatives in Congress. We're trying to get the UAP Disclosure Act of 2025 passed this year. That will be a very important component of bringing the truth out to not only the American people, but to the world. If you haven't noticed, we're being bombarded by several different enigmatic phenomena. This presentation will primarily be about crop circles, but crop circles are but one facet of several equally unusual phenomena that increasingly appear to all be aspects of an alien agenda intended to awaken our human family to their presence here with us. We've already been informed by our own government that UFOs are real. If it makes you feel better, you can fall back on that worn out mantra that UFOs still remain unidentified. You could do that, but you would be wrong. With the discovery of the Buga Sphere, we now have solid and irrefutable evidence that we are sharing this planet with a highly intelligent and highly technologically advanced species that is not human. In crop circles, we encounter what I characterize as a yin message, that it exhibits the qualities of love, caring, and nurturing that are incorporated into that ancient Chinese symbol, the yin-yang symbol. Crop circles challenge us to stop and deeply consider what they are trying to tell us. Many crop circles serve as primers, spurring our intellects toward questioning exactly what is going on. For many, crop circles will serve as a reassuring reminder that the alien presence in our world is non-threatening. I believe that to be the case. Conversely, we find the alien yang message being brought to us through cattle mutilations. These horrific acts of violence inform us that the alien beings responsible for these exceedingly violent actions perpetrated on innocent animals are capable of and willing to engage in a level of violence that we will not want to experience ourselves. We need to avoid this through every means possible. That means we all need to be paying attention to these very important phenomena. With alien abductions, we are confronted with the realization that those responsible for these actions have been harvesting human sexual gametes, that is, eggs and sperm, for some purpose of which we can only speculate. However, one would logically conclude that these actions are likely part of a program that involves the genetic engineering of our species. How long this may have been going on is unknown. It is possible that this may have been going on for many thousands of years. Since 2015, we've been confronted with new evidence of extraterrestrial visitation to this planet through the discovery of the Nazca mummies in Peru. What I will say about the Nazca mummies is that they are certainly real, and they appear to, once again, point us toward a program involving genetic engineering that was in process on this planet a minimum of 900 years ago. I've looked at the CT scans that are publicly available. Asking Thierry Jamin, who's kind of the guy that's been front and center in all of this for quite some time, he sent those CT scans to me, and I reviewed them with a very experienced US radiologist. And both of us came to the same conclusion that the Nazca mummies are real. So we await further studies on the Nazca mummies, which are now in progress. The Buga Sphere is currently being studied by qualified scientists at the University of Mexico. A press conference that Jaime Maussan is having today is going to tell us more about what's been discovered about the Buga Sphere. Jaime Maussan has stated that someone from the US Congress will be there at that press conference. So apparently some members of Congress are taking an interest in the Buga Sphere, and rightly so. We're presently waiting for the public release of this film titled The Age of Disclosure. Dan Farah, I wish that you would go ahead and get this out to the public. In this film, we hear from 34 different individuals presently holding or who have previously held top secret security clearances within our government. All of them are telling us the same thing. That is, the United States government has recovered crafts and technologies of non-human origin. There are legacy programs in existence that have been attempting to reverse engineer these technologies for decades at a cost that may amount to many trillions of dollars. Those are taxpayer dollars. We are citizens of a country that does not offer its people universal health care, housing for the homeless, a robust social safety net, or a free college education. UFO disclosure matters a lot more than most of our citizens realize. So listen to this trailer.
The American people are ready to receive the truth.
Humanity is not the only intelligence in the universe.
Humanity is not the only intelligent species.
We are absolutely not alone.
Non-human intelligence exists.
UAPs are real, they're here, and they're not human. I spent 25 years as a senior official with the CIA.
I've worked on highly classified UAP programs.
28 years as an astrophysicist.
I served as the 4th Director of National Intelligence.
Director of Aviation Security in the National Security Council.
A one-star admiral after 32 years of service.
People that come forward with this, I feel like they've taken their life in their own hands.
I was recruited to a highly sensitive government program that investigated unidentified aerial phenomenon.
For over 16 years, on behalf of the U.S. government, I worked as a senior intelligence official on the unidentified aerial phenomenon topic.
We learned that the U.S. government was involved in a long-running secret war with other nations to collect and reverse engineer vehicles not made by humans.
I have seen with my own eyes non-human craft and non-human beings.
Look at that thing. It's rotating. There's a whole fleet of them.
The first country that cracks the code on this technology will be the leader for years to come.
China has established its own version of a UAP task force.
You think for a second that they wouldn't consider using it to achieve their ends of domination?
This is similar to the Manhattan Project. This is the atomic weapon on steroids.
This is so secret. Very, very few people in our entire government have been allowed access to it.
Even presidents have been operating on a need-to-know basis, but that begins to ramp out of control.
It's not acceptable to have secret parts of government that no one ever sees.
You better be careful about a government that doesn't trust its people, because there's no telling what they'll pull on you.
This is the biggest discovery in human history.
You had information being locked away that could change the trajectory for species.
It has so many beneficial impacts, including clean energy.
We should have disclosure today. We should have disclosure tomorrow. The time has come.
What else you want to know?
So there's no doubt that UFOs and the non-human intelligence behind them are real. Now that we know that, polite civil discussion about the origins of crop circles and what they mean have become a legitimate topic to discuss and to ponder. But there are many aspects to these revelations that merit our deepest concerns. What do we want to come of this? Do we want these technologies to bring us, as the previous director of the OSAP program in the Pentagon, Jay Stratton, stated, that these could be atomic weapons on steroids? Is that what we want? Whatever these technologies will bring us, we, our children, and our grandchildren are going to be paying for it. We don't want to pay for it with our lives. However, there are reasons to believe that this is exactly the direction that the U.S. Department of Defense and the intelligence community are going with these technologies. As I stated above, I represent New Paradigm Institute's Citizens for Disclosure campaign in Montana. New Paradigm Institute's position on where we go with what we are learning from the study of alien technologies strongly discourages the weaponization of any of these technologies derived from the study of alien craft or devices. We would like to see these technologies applied only to causes that will be for the benefit of all beings, including our human family and this planet upon which we all depend. This slide shows a Celtic love knot. We see that it is a continuous loop that creates an image of two hearts, like one of the hearts is upside down, the other is right side up, and those two hearts entwine this central square. This crop circle occurred near the town of Sutton Veny in the United Kingdom on May the 15th of this year, so just about a month ago. When we look at it, it immediately reminds us of a Celtic love knot. However, if we inspect it closely, we see that there's an important difference. A Celtic love knot, as we saw before in the previous slide, sustains a continuous loop that entwines the two human hearts around a central square. And this signifies the eternal love between them. In the Sutton Veny design, the loops entwine the central square but they do not create a continuous eternal loop. Perhaps this difference signifies our relationships with the senders of the Sutton-Veney crop circle, which is almost certainly a genuine crop circle, and by that I mean one not made by humans using ropes and planks. Love may be an important aspect of their relationship with us, but that love may not be eternal. It may not be unconditional. Going out on a limb while also considering what we see in cattle mutilations, I speculate that how we respond to their warnings about our nuclear weapons will have much to do with how our relationship with them unfolds into the future. The link that you see at the bottom of this slide will take you to a video in which the elongation of the stem nodes of the barley plants in this crop circle is made very apparent. This stem node lengthening is a defining characteristic of a genuine crop circle. Others are stem node expulsion cavities seen only in the drier, mature plants like around in August. Crystallization of the soil within the boundaries of the crop circle, and the deposition of meteoritic iron on the plants and in the soil within the boundaries of the crop circle. I'll have more to say about the presence of meteoritic iron in crop circles in a future slide. Toward the end of the video, you will hear an interview with a nearby neighbor who, along with his wife, witnessed a triangular, silent UFO moving over the area during the late evening prior to when this crop circle was discovered. So check out that video. This is a reminder that all crop circles are not created equally. There's no doubt that the centers of genuine crop circles stem from a non-human intelligence. However, many, and perhaps most crop circles are made by humans. I believe a very small minority of those crop circles made by humans are made by human pranksters using ropes and boards. I believe there is yet another highly technological method used to create the vast majority of crop circles made by humans. I'll speak about that in a minute. This is a screenshot from the website of BLT Research, the organization that has done most of the work on the scientific study of crop circles. BLT stands for John Burke, Bill Levengood, and Nancy Talbot. And I'd like to give a shout out to Nancy Talbot for all of the work you've done over many decades, thankless work at a time when people just weren't getting it. So thank you, Nancy. We owe each of these individuals our deepest thanks for their efforts to do the research during a time when UFOs, aliens, and crop circles were not a thing in the minds of most of our people. I draw your attention to the peer-reviewed paper titled Semi-Molten Meteoritic Iron Associated with a Crop Formation. To the right there, the image shows an expulsion cavity that resulted from the explosive rupture of a stem node due to internal heating and steam production. To produce that steam required energy input. Where that energy came from is a profoundly important question. The data shown in this slide is provided by Crop Circle Center in the United Kingdom. To date, the Crop Circle Center has recorded a total of 7,100 and must be around 17 now crop circles, which is probably a low number due to the underreporting and the fact that some crop circles are probably never discovered. Other estimates I've seen approach a total of 10,000 crop circles over the decades. The highest number of crop circles in a single summer's growing season occurred in 1998, and that was 318 crop circles. That's about a little over 100 crop circles a month over the growing season. The largest increase in the number of crop circles occurred between 1989 and 1990, and remember those years because they're very significant. Between those years, the number of crop circles in 1990 increased by 134 crop circles over 1989. We can question why this sudden and dramatic increase in the number of crop circles in 1990 occurred. There's a good reason for this that I will try to explain. And let me just say here, this is speculation, I agree, but it's informed speculation, and I think the logic behind it makes sense. So the rock band Led Zeppelin released their popular Remasters album in October of 1990. On the cover of that album was a photo of a crop circle that had been popularized in the British press. Let's also consider that the UFO cover-up had been in place since at least 1947, since the Roswell event. When crop circles began appearing by the hundreds, people began to rightfully question where these were coming from and who was responsible for their creation. After all, a crop circle necessarily represents the trespass upon and vandalization of a farmer's crop. It is worth noting that, to my knowledge, only a single individual has ever been arrested and fined for the creation of a crop circle. That individual, a man named Matthew Williams, turned himself in, claiming responsibility for creating a simple crop circle. He was not caught in the act. Nobody has ever been caught in the act of vandalizing a farmer's crop field and his crop to create a crop circle. That is also significant. Anyway, there could be no question that the appearance of even a few mysterious crop circles could threaten the viability of the UFO cover-up. But the UFO gatekeepers had an ace up their sleeves, and that ace was the Beam Experiment Aboard Rocket, or BEAR, BEAR. The U.S. Department of Defense program originated with Ronald Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative, also known as Star Wars. The BEAR experiment was a successful launch, orbiting, and deployment of a neutral particle beam weapon, otherwise known as a directed energy weapon, in space. BEAR was launched in 1989 and successfully proved that a particle beam weapon could be successfully deployed from a space-based platform. Remember, too, that it was between 1989 and 1990 when we saw the biggest increase in the absolute number of crop circles over each of those summers. Here we see a photo of the original BEAR neutral particle beam weapon. It is on display at the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. Having successfully proven that a directed energy weapon could be deployed from space, do you think it reasonable that the U.S. Department of Defense or NATO stopped in their pursuit of a powerful and highly controllable space-based weapon toward the end of the Cold War? Although the end of the Cold War marked a de-escalation in the geopolitical tensions between the United States and Russia, The threat of nuclear annihilation has never gone away. The United States and Russia a space-based weapon capable of neutralizing Russia's nuclear arsenal, even after launch, would have been regarded as a highly desirable and highly coveted means of defending our nation and other NATO nations in the event of a nuclear war. Bear proved that this could be done. But how would you train military personnel to competently deploy such a weapon? What could be used as a target that would not alert the Russians to the real existence of such a space-based directed energy weapon that was now in the hands of the US military and NATO? Did the US Department of Defense use crop circles as a cover that would enable them to refine the capabilities of Bear and train personnel in its use? The defining characteristics of crop circles, that is, the majority that are not made by humans using ropes and boards, give us some clues about how they are created. The superheating of the water within the stems of the plants involved in a crop circle leads to steam production and results in the elongation of the stem nodes in young plants and ruptured expulsion cavities in the stem nodes of older, mature plants. The finding of high concentrations of meteoritic iron in the soil of crop circles and even deposited on the leaves of the plants suggests that a particle beam weapon has dragged the charged meteoritic iron ions that are ever present in our atmosphere down to the ground, but only in the area over which the particle beam has been directed. A particle beam directed energy weapon may also explain why an electromagnetic disequilibrium or an imbalance is present in some crop circles. This electromagnetic imbalance has resulted in a rapid decline in the state of charge of camera and cell phone batteries when they are brought into a crop circle. This phenomenon has been reported repeatedly by several to many disappointed croppies who have personally visited crop circles with the intention of photographing and or filming them, only to discover that their camera battery had been completely drained of charge. I believe this is where the majority of our crop circles are coming from. This theory explains why nobody's ever been apprehended while trespassing and vandalizing a farmer's crop field. It explains why crop circles appear overnight within a span of a few hours. It is known that there's a crop circle called the Julia set that occurred near Stonehenge that appeared over a period of 45 minutes. This reported by a pilot who flew over the area before and after that crop circle appeared. All of this is not to say that all crop circles are created by humans using a directed energy weapon deployed by the US military and or NATO. Although these principles behind that I've described using a directed energy beam may explain how all crop circles are created, those crop circles that are sent to us from a non-human intelligence, that is ET, exhibit features that human beings simply cannot duplicate. An explanation of these features is beyond the scope of this presentation, but I will say that these features present irrefutable evidence of foreknowledge of future events. These crop circles clearly show evidence of, for lack of a better term, time travel. We will talk about some of those crop circles in a future presentation. This is a photo of an aluminum target destroyed by the Bear directed energy weapon. This target is made out of aluminum. The melting point of aluminum is 1,220 degrees Fahrenheit. Water boils and produces steam at around 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's very clear that the Bear produced enough energy, more than enough energy, to boil the water, cause the steam in plant stems, and result in these elongated nodes, etc. On the right here, you see a headline that was in Popular Mechanics, published back in March of 2019. Well, as you can see, Popular Mechanics was about 30 years behind the times in their reporting, because the NATO already had a particle beam in space by 1990, basically. These two posters show scaled but accurate reproductions of crop circle designs that occurred in the summers of 1990 and 2009. They're separated by a decade of development. I believe that the increase we see in the complexity of the designs represents advances in the design and refinements in the granular capabilities of a US military or NATO space-based directed energy weapon. Many crop circles had to be created in order to refine the weapon's capabilities and to properly train military personnel in the use of the weapon. Although President Trump frequently has difficulty speaking in complete sentences, we can now make an informed guess about what he meant when he made this statement. He said, quote, "We have stuff you haven't even seen or heard about. We have stuff that Putin and Xi have never heard about before," Trump said, referring to Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping in China. "There's nobody. What we have is incredible." So what did he mean by that? I think he meant that we have these weapons, these directed energy weapons in space. Let's talk for a moment about the common misconception that most crop circles are made by humans using ropes and planks, that they use these to depress the crop in the crop circle. Here we have a useful report by a journalist named Katie Hill from Australia. She interviewed the crew that made this crop circle as an advertisement for a Japanese brewing company. As you can see, the answers that she received to her questions in no way can support the contention that people with ropes and boards can create a large and elaborately complex crop circle in the dark over the course of a few hours. This crop circle advertisement required 1 week of dusk to dawn work using loud equipment, spray paint, and a crew of 40 people. Pranksters using ropes and boards have created crop circles, but these have only been done as exercises in counterintelligence, intended to sustain the illusion, or rather your confusion, about the ultimate source of crop circles. Addressing the question of why most crop circles occur in the Northern Hemisphere, and specifically in the United Kingdom, the answer to that question is grounded in the fact that a space-based weapon deployed by NATO would only be used in a nuclear war to protect NATO countries, all of which are in the Northern Hemisphere. The United Kingdom is an ideal location to create crop circles using a space-based directed energy weapon. Why is that? It's because MOD linemen, the base hosting the regimental headquarters of the Royal Electrical and Mechanical Engineers, is only a short drive from Wiltshire, the British county that has been the epicenter of crop circle activity in the UK for many decades. It is a quick and easy drive on surface roads, less than a half an hour, from MOD linemen that allows those electrical and mechanical engineers to be the first to arrive to a new crop circle and assess the effectiveness of whatever new change has been made in either the hardware or the software that directs the operating functionality of NATO's space-based directed energy weapons. During NASA's space shuttle program, there were many classified military launches, the purpose of which common citizens were never informed about. I strongly suspect that we now have several to many of these directed energy weapon systems orbiting Earth above our heads at any given time. In this slide, we see an illustration that symbolizes the concept called squaring the circle, which basically means trying to create heaven on Earth. This theme appears frequently in crop circles. The idea of squaring the circle stems from ancient mystical philosophies in which our earthly lives, this plight of our existence that we call the human condition, is represented by the square with its sharp corners, defined angles, and its measurable dimensions. In contrast, the circle, defined by the irrational and infinite number pi that only gives an approximation of both the area and the circumference of the circle, references the inscrutable and mysterious qualities of the celestial or the heavenly existence. Those qualities are characterized as sacred, mystical, eternal, and transcendental. Some would describe these qualities as divine, but I prefer the Lakota word Wakhan, which perfectly characterizes these qualities without the accompanying baggage of our Abrahamic religions. For me, the genuine crop circles are Wakhan. So these crop circles will often encourage us to continue on in our sacred mission to create heaven on earth by squaring the circle, creating a square with the same perimeter or the same area as the circle. Because the circle is defined by the irrational number pi, it is not possible to do this. However, we are still encouraged to aspire to create heaven on earth. And that effort is definitely worthy of our consideration and our efforts. This may be the reason we even exist. It is these crop circles that encourage us to be better than we are. This is one example of a crop circle that encourages us to square the circle. And to the left of the crop circle there, you can see the drawing where the circle is basically squared 3 times. And that's what we're encouraged to do in this type of a crop circle. These films helped open my eyes to crop circles. I saw these films, both of them, a couple of decades ago, and I thought the information in them was remarkable. So I recommend them and encourage you to see them. So the crop circles are teaching us about the qualities of Wakhan. It is these qualities shown to us in these crop circles that are the requirements we must incorporate into each of our daily lives and thereby into our societies to create a just and sustainable civilization on Earth, in which not only our human family, but indeed this entire planet with all of its magnificent species can continue to thrive. Nuclear weapons can never be a part of that equation. So look at this slide for a moment and think about all of these different things that we see in genuine crop circles really are important qualities for each of us to try to emulate. There are many genuine crop circles, but here we're going to focus on the Crooked Soley crop circle. You see a photo of it there in the center. It was sent to us on August the 27th, 2002. It's about 220 feet in diameter, and it is encoded with information that leaves no doubt that this is a genuine crop circle intended to enlighten us and to reassure us that we are not alone. It also encourages us to square the circle. If you want to learn more about the Crooked Soley crop circle, you need to read this book shown on the left. There is much more to this crop circle than I can go over with you in the limited time of this presentation. So here I'm only going to hit the high points. In this slide, on the left, we see an example, on the right, we see an example of how we would go about designing the Crooked Soley crop circle on paper. Imagine trying to do this in a wheat field in the dark. There are only two ways to draw this design on paper accurately, and both of those methods require multiple lines that extend from the center of the circle out to its periphery. But look at the photo of Crooked Soley. Aside from the visible tram lines that you see, these are from UK farming practices that these lines accommodate the tractor tires. Those lines are generally about 60 feet apart in the UK. But if you look at the exact center of the inner wheat circle, it is completely undisturbed. Nobody has touched the wheat plants in the center of the inner circle. Once those wheat stalks in a crop circle have been laid down, there is no means of standing them back up again without this being completely obvious. Humans using ropes and boards did not do this crop circle. Full stop. The Crooked Soley crop circle is named after the nearby town of Crooked Soley, but there's also a town named Straight Soley. The precise center of the Crooked Soley crop circle creates an equilateral triangle with its apices being the precise center of the Crooked Soley crop circle, its namesake town, Crooked Soley, and Straight Soley. So in other words, this crop circle was going to be placed where it was created no matter what. In other words, concerns about adequate parking, security lighting, the presence of guard dogs or farm animals, or an escape route for humans were not considerations in determining where this crop circle was to appear, and that is significant. To create Crooked Soley, 1,296 precisely defined units of wheat plants had to be marked and listed for treatment, either to be left standing or to be laid down. On August the 27th, there were approximately 10 hours of darkness, and the moon phase on that night was waning gibbous. That means that there was only about 75% of ambient moonlight that night. And that number depends on whether it was a cloudless night or not. And I don't know that information. If it was cloudy, then there was even less light available. So if we do the math, we see that treating each and every wheat unit would allow only 2.19 minutes per unit of wheat to be laid down or left standing. This would necessarily require constant work over that 10 hours of darkness, and all of this without creating any obvious errors. This calculation does not even include the time required to lay out the design, as you saw in that paper drawing of this crop circle. I cannot speculate how long it would take to lay out those construction lines, but I suspect it would require days to complete, even if one were using modern day GPS surveying equipment. Crooked Soley is indeed a miraculous creation. It is Wakhan. So this slide requires some study, but it illustrates what is truly miraculous in the design of Crooked Soley. The 1,296 wheat units are divided by 504 wheat units that were left standing and 792 units that were laid down. In mystical philosophy, both of these numbers are considered to be sacred numbers. Note that the ratio between 792 and 504 is 1.57. Both of these numbers multiplied by 10 reference physical relationships between the Earth and our moon. The Earth's diameter is 7,920 miles. If our moon is brought down tangential to Earth, this action referencing squaring the circle, that is, bringing what is in heaven closer to Earth, then the distance between Earth's center and the moon's center is 5,040 miles. The ratio of these two physical distances is also 1.57. We see that larger circle surrounding Earth that intersects the moon's center has a radius of 5,040 miles. The circumference of that circle is 31,651 miles. Squaring that circle with 4 points of that square being tangential to the Earth results in a square with a perimeter of 31,680 miles. We can see then that the Crooked Soley crop circle is indeed encouraging us to square the circle. All of this will be difficult for you to see and understand unless you spend some time studying these relationships shown in this illustration for a while. The green triangles that you see are a special type of triangle. They are a type of right triangle called a 1, 2, 3 right triangle, with the length of each side being a multiple of the shortest side. We can legitimately question why the moon just happens to be this exact size in relation to Earth. Add to this the observation that the moon just happens to be of the exact size with its orbit at such a precise distance from Earth that the moon's edge exactly aligns with the perimeter of the sun during a total solar eclipse. Some postulate that the moon is an artificial satellite of Earth that was deliberately placed in an orbit that would result in these observations. To all of this, add that the moon is tidally locked to Earth in such a way that from Earth, we see only one side of the moon at all times. As far as I know, this tidal locking is not unique to the moon or among other celestial bodies, but does afford the conditions required to build an operating base on the backside of the moon that would always be completely obscured from earthbound telescopes. Dr. Stephen Greer's mission is known as the Disclosure Project. And shout out here to Dr. Greer. Great job that you've done over many decades of persistence. Thank you for all your work. This has been his decades-long attempt to awaken our human family to the fact that we are not alone as the only intelligent species inhabiting this planet. One of Dr. Greer's Disclosure Project witnesses, a man named Carl Wolf, gave testimony about seeing photographs while he was in the military of artificial structures on the moon. These structures suggesting that there may be an alien base on the moon. If that is true, the moon may well be an artificial satellite that has served as an operating base for our ET visitors for millennia. By now, maybe we shouldn't even call them visitors. They seem to be permanent residents. I'm not an expert on the moon, but the numerology that we encounter in Crooked Soley strongly hints that all of this may be true. It is up to us to wonder about and keep digging until we get to the truth and we finally become able to square the circle. In this illustration, we also see the Great Pyramid has been inscribed with its exact proportions scaled in such a way that its base spans the diameter of Earth. Surprisingly, we also see that the Great Pyramid's apex exactly intersects the center of the moon when the moon is brought tangential to Earth, as we see it in the illustration. Therefore, this means the proportions of the Great Pyramid also reference squaring the circle. These relationships being incorporated into the design and construction of this wonder of the world. The latitude upon which the Great Pyramid was built is also remarkable. The 9 digits denoting the Great Pyramid's latitude of 29.9792458 degrees north latitude are the same 9 digits in the same order that define the speed of light in a vacuum in meters per second. The probability that these same 9 digits fall in the same order is 1 in a billion. If we were talking about a Walmart here, we could perhaps brush this off as being a mere coincidence. But we're not talking about a Walmart. We're talking about the most massive and enigmatic artificial construction that has ever been accomplished on the face of this earth. The speed of light in a vacuum, as far as we know, was not determined by human beings until 1972. But somehow, the speed of light in a vacuum was known at the time that the Great Pyramid was discovered and built. When it was built. We are not alone on this planet as the only intelligent species, and this has always been the case. The Great Pyramid is also Wakhan. There's other numerology encoded in the Crooked Soley crop circle that is complex and difficult to grasp and even more difficult to explain. It references proportions that appear in Plato's description of the heavenly city. There are other numerological relationships described in this book that you will also find interesting. What we see in the image of Crooked Soley is clearly a reference to what has been termed the divine feminine. So we should now consider just what it is we're looking at in the image that we see in Crooked Soley. As many of you might have already guessed, the double helix portrays DNA. However, this is a particular subtype of DNA that is found only in our cellular organelles called mitochondria. We all have mitochondria floating around in every cell of our bodies. Mitochondria are nothing less than micro machines dedicated to a process called oxidative phosphorylation, in which the energy currency that keeps us alive is produced every minute of every day. That energy currency is called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. Mitochondrial DNA differs from the DNA found in the nuclei of our cells in that the ends of mitochondrial DNA are conjoined together to form a circle, just as we see it portrayed in the Crooked Soley crop circle. This little short film shows these little circles of mitochondrial DNA that float around within the mitochondria. So you might think that the concept of the divine feminine would be defined by the act of giving life through childbirth. And certainly that's part of it, but the divine feminine goes much deeper than that. How is that? It's because mitochondrial DNA is bestowed on us only through maternal inheritance. Your father had nothing to do with your mitochondrial DNA, but it is your mitochondrial DNA that codes for the biological processes that have allowed you to be alive, remain alive, and be a productive human being every day of your life. This is the gift we receive from our mothers, and this is the miracle we see so eloquently presented to us in the Crooked Soley crop circle. So, who are the senders of this Crooked Soley crop circle? I want to know them. It's been 23 years since Crooked Soley was sent to us. Since that time, no human being has ever attempted to take credit for its creation. This miracle in a wheat field was erased by harvesters within 4 hours after it was discovered. The farmers that destroyed it could not have understood the profound messages encoded into this crop circle. Thankfully, Steve Alexander of Temporary Temples was able to get up in the air and obtain photographs of Crooked Soley before it was destroyed. Had he not done this, we would know none of this. This is an example of why every crop circle must be photographically documented for posterity. Farmers must allow time for Steve and others to photographically document crop circles that occur in their crop fields. Individuals who want to experience being inside of a crop circle firsthand should be willing to pay for that privilege. And here I want to send an appeal to everyone watching this to please support temporary temples. It's temporarytemples.co.uk in the United Kingdom. That's Stephen Karen Alexander's website. Please go there and donate to them and support their work. You know, they try hard to get to every single crop circle and photographically document it with very high quality aerial photography. They've been doing this summer after summer, and they need all of our help to continue doing it. So please help them out. temporarytemples.co.uk. So getting back to the question of who sent this crop circle, I speculate that it was sent to our human family from our mother. That is, our mother race. The implications of this statement are profound, and if true, will reverberate throughout the foundations of our modern Abrahamic religions. That this statement might be true is supported by new evidence recently discovered in Peru surrounding the Nazca mummies. It increasingly appears that these tridactyl, or three-fingered, three-toed creatures were created through a program that involved genetic engineering in Peru between 900 and 6,000 years ago. The modern-day alien abduction phenomenon, with its alleged harvesting of human sexual gametes, also speaks to the likelihood that the genetic engineering of our species has been an ongoing project involving a non-human intelligence for quite some time. It will be a while longer before we have all of this figured out, but the pursuit of this knowledge will be well worth our time and our effort. Looking at this photo of Crooked Soley, I think we can all agree that this inner circle of wheat is pristine. It is entirely obvious that nobody disturbed any of the wheat in the inner circle, and especially that wheat in the precise center of the inner circle. Confirm to yourself that this is true. In the next slide, you will see an example of the kind of propaganda that has intentionally prevented you from seeing and knowing about Crooked Soley until now. First, you must understand and acknowledge that crop circles sent to us from a non-human intelligence threatened the UFO cover-up. The US military and NATO became determined to use crop circles as a cover for developing their space-based directed energy weapon. At the same time, a counterintelligence program aimed at citizens who became interested in crop circles was also put into place. The mission of this counterintelligence program was to confuse you about the origins of genuine crop circles. Is it aliens? Or is it humans, pranksters with ropes and boards? As the psychologists employed to design and guide counterintelligence programs for our intelligence community, as they intended, most of us closed our minds to crop circles and any attempts to explain them. There were several groups called Team Satan and Circle Makers, and they set up websites. And they made it look like they were the ones that were going out and making all of these hundreds of crop circles every summer. So through those groups, we were given an exit ramp. That is, humans with ropes and boards, and most of us took it. We don't have the bandwidth in our daily lives to dwell upon what at the time seems to be trivial questions. The image that you see on the left is taken from a popular website that deals exclusively with crop circles, not temporary temples, by the way. It can still be found there in the section presenting the Crooked Soley crop circle. Its author raises 7 points about the Crooked Soley crop circle, all negative, all leading you to the desired conclusion that the Crooked Soley crop circle was man-made. All 7 claims are demonstrably false. However, this type of negative propaganda is all that is required to dissuade most people from further questioning the provenance of a crop circle. Today, we have a term for this type of counterintelligence. We call it gaslighting. This practice of gaslighting the public about crop circles, UFOs, and aliens has been employed in government counterintelligence efforts since the mid-1940s, and it has been very successful. There has been secrecy, yes, but more importantly, the mainstay of the psychological strategies used in the counterintelligence programs intended to dissuade people away from crop circles, UFOs, and aliens has been to render them unapproachable by anyone who cares about their reputation, their social status, or their career aspirations. Here's another example of why photographically documenting every crop circle that we can get to is so important. This is a short video of a spherical metallic object that was seen and video recorded while floating around over the town of Buga, Colombia. The object was discovered on the ground and retrieved by a citizen on March the 2nd, 2025. The sphere eventually made it into the hands of Jaime Maussan in Mexico, and Mr. Maussan then delivered it to scientists at the University of Mexico who had been studying this sphere. What they have discovered about this sphere leads us to a remarkable conclusion. This sphere is of non-human origin and provides the hard evidence that so many have been demanding to see for proof of the alien presence. The Buga Sphere provides irrefutable evidence that we are sharing this planet with a non-human intelligence who designed, manufactured, and operated the Buga Sphere. For once, this alien hardware has finally ended up in the hands of private citizens and cannot be locked away and classified by any government.
¿Qué carajos? Y un globo no es.
It's not a balloon.
Eso se ve como algo extraño. O sea. Mueve súper rápido. Es una pelota, no es, ni un globo. Un globo no es. Eso es otra cosa. Estamos acercando. Se alcanza a ver.
So in that video, you can tell that the 2 women that are there trying to figure out what they're looking at, and they can't identify it. Below right, you see an X-ray image of the Buga Sphere that allows us to see inside of it. The sphere has 3 distinct concentric layers. The inner core of the sphere features 16 darker nodes that appear to communicate with similar nodes surrounding the equator of the sphere via fiber optic bundles. This is what the scientists in Mexico have been determining. It's also been reported that the weight of the sphere has varied considerably from the time it was discovered. This observation implies that the sphere has the capability of affecting the gravitational field surrounding it. On the top of the sphere, we see these 5 arcuate designs that are reminiscent of some crop circles that we've seen in the past. Additionally, there's a circular script composed of unknown characters surrounding what appears to be similar to an expanded view of a solid-state electrical circuit. On the right is a photograph of a crop circle that was discovered in July of 2010 in Eastfield in the United Kingdom. Eastfield is a famous hosting site for many crop circles that have occurred in the past. This crop circle bears an uncanny resemblance to features that we encounter in the Buga Sphere. The crop circle image suggests what we would see if we sliced the Buga Sphere into halves through its equator. We see the core nodules connected by a network. We might interpret this network as fiber optic bundles. We see a circular script presented in characters that are not recognizable to us. However, note that one of the characters seen on the Buga Sphere is a nearly exact match with one of the characters featured in this crop circle. It seems almost certain that this crop circle, discovered 15 years ago, references what we are now seeing in this recently recovered alien hardware being studied at the University of Mexico. We are living in exciting times, times in which we are learning for certain that we are not alone. There's a lot more to talk about with crop circles, but I think I'm going to stop here for now. I hope you've enjoyed learning something about the Crooked Soley crop circle, the Buga Sphere, and the profound messages that these bring to those of us who will take the time and make the effort to pay attention. Don't allow yourself to be gaslit any longer by those in our government, our intelligence communities, who would continue to hide these important relationships from the rest of humanity. Please consider becoming a donating member of New Paradigm Institute. We need everyone's help to get all of this moving in the right direction, not toward atomic bombs on steroids. Thank you for watching, and please let me know your thoughts in the comments.